What's up? Welcome to the Fed Up Podcast. I'm Ryan, here with Jordan again, dude. How you doing, man?
Dude, I'm so pumped.
Right on. So, today, we're going to talk about politics. You know, coming after religion, why not talk about, the two topics that we never want to sit around the dinner table and talk about?
Yeah.
But the goal of this conversation is it's not going to get political. If you want us to talk about Trump or you want us to talk about Clinton or whoever else, the goal is not to talk about them. If those names come up, it's only in reference to talking about politics on the whole, because politics is such a tough topic because there's so many people that are dug in on some political belief. And the idea is we need to be able to talk about political beliefs in general and talk about how something that is so important has become something that we really struggle to vocalize with one another. So, I think it begins there, dude, is talking about, so politics, when you think of what politics is, it's something, it's a way of which we govern ourselves by whatever system we picked, for some of the most basic things to some of the most technical things, for how the systems we put in place to have running water, to the system we have in place to make new laws, to what's okay, to what's not okay, to what your kid can do in school and stuff like this. It's something we all care about. And even though we may not want to really engage in much political debate or really look at our political beliefs, it's something we really need to do, because our world, the way it is right now, is so interconnected. And if you believe a lot of the stuff you see in the news and the way climate is, and so it's important stuff to talk about, because we want to help the world we're in and the people that are in it from suffering, and the world that can continually, be a great habitat, because it's our only habitat. So anyway, dude, I don't want to keep rambling on about this, but politics, man. So in your life, when you think about politics, how does it look for you? Do you get very political? Do you think about this kind of stuff? Is it something that comes up in your day-to-day life very often?
Well, it's a great question, and unfortunately, I'm, as you're painfully aware, I'm painfully politically incorrect with how I open my mouth and talk about most things, and not tactful. But that's I think that's the reality of politics. Is the reason why I have such a hard time being politically correct and in being a gooder, decent human being and a decent citizen, and why I have such a struggle with it is because politics on a whole, the idea of it is hilarious to me in a sad way, like sad tears, not happy tears. Politics it's a byproduct of individuals not being able to individually run the inner soul politics of their lives to the degree that they don't know how to govern their own individual realities. Enough of them have been shitty enough and have made enough dumb choices to where a group of other people said, we need to establish some laws because these people are out of control, and we need to tell them how to live their lives in the same way. Like, there are at the zoo, there's tons of animals and creatures where there's a zookeeper, like, this is how we're going to take care of the elephants, this is how we're going to take care of the polar bears. And there are a bunch of zookeepers in Washington saying there's a bunch of crazy creatures out there, trying to mate with each other when they shouldn't, and we're going to tell them when they can have babies. And if a rhinoceros wants to mate with an ostrich, we're going to say, no, they're different genders, they can't interbreed. And it's hilarious to me, because we have unfortunately gotten to the point where it's incredibly necessary for us to be governed. There is a massive amount of people every day that are perfect example. The whole need for a police system, a system of individuals who are paid full time to uphold justice, because there's a lot of people who don't believe in living a just life.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying that there is an inevitability polarization in everything that we do, and in every human being there is a potential to steer towards good and a potential to steer towards bad. Mm-hmm. And there's enough people's little soul compasses that were never calibrated, were never taught how to calibrate their compass, and they are crazy, like man-eating hyenas on the loose in the zoo of life, just wanting to thrash and go on school shootings and laugh and kill people. Like there's crazy human beings in the zoo of just our American zoo.
Yeah.
You know, and unfortunately our zookeeper, again, we're not going to go down the naming names about certain politicians and stuff, but I think the real thing I want to focus on, and I want to pick your brain about, is we're in a zoo. Unfortunately, it's necessary. We need a zookeeper, and we need people to tell us how to live. We don't need them to, but there's enough people that their nature wants to destroy the common good of mankind, mm-hmm. that there needs to be some level of mediator between the bad people and the people just trying to survive every day.
Yeah.
You know? And what's interesting is we think that the democracy aspect of our reality and everyone getting to vote is such a beautiful, freeing thing. And I think I'm probably going to misquote this. We've talked a lot about different philosophers and Socrates and all this, Aristotle, blah blah blah. I think of Socrates, one of the OGs of democracy, where he was actually one of the biggest defenders for why it's a dangerous path. Innately we talk about, and we will fight to death over the idea of having this right to vote about what we believe is right. But Socrates argued about, and this is actually really gangster thought, about shouldn't the people voting, should it be a birthright to vote and put people in power positions, or should the people voting be incredibly educated mm-hmm. about what their vote actually means?
Sure.
So that's, I think, and I only bring that up not to talk about philosophy and get all geeked out about.
Well, it's part of it.
But living in today, I know who our president is, and I'm utterly not surprised, because there's an incredible amount of ignorance in the world mm-hmm. with how our zoo should be ran.
Sure.
So clearly, I'm uneducated and don't have good or politically correct thoughts about it. But I look at it as ultimately, I am my own president of my own soul, and I have to take responsibility for seeking and finding the path of being the best version of who I am, knowing that I am connected mm-hmm. to a specific town, a specific city, to a nation, and being in this reality and having so much freedoms that we many people die for, to protect the freedoms that we have.
Sure.
So I do have a sense of knowing I have a responsibility to do what I can to help continue evoking hey, zoo creatures, let's go hang out over here, and let's try to figure out how to stop the hyenas from slaughtering us every day.
Yeah.
So being an observer of the chaos within the democracy and political system, there's an infinite amount of intimidation with looking at all the political figures and people who are drawn to politics. It's terrifying egos, terrifying manifestations of wanting to be in politics because of wanting to taste power.
That's right.
And most of the people that should be in political positions will never.
Yeah.
I mean, never. Because they're actually conducting the politics of their own life, doing the good, not worried about being on the camera, not worried about being perceived as this incredible. How many political people have you seen do horrific things like Wiener? Hello, not to get off the name tangent again, but it's all politicians are humans, and all politicians have secret polarizations within themselves that we don't know about, and it's terrifying how little how little effort I've invested in developing my political understanding and my my need to get more involved. But my defeat, my victim mentality is just seeing infinite, literal and metaphorical Twitter feed of political thoughts from powerfully political people. It's
Yeah.
and we've talked about before. It's like politics isn't about, hey, what is the common good of mankind and womankind. It's how do I win, and how do I leave a legacy? And that's what you feel from political people is how do I make me the most memorable figure in politics? And most of the people that are legit political powerful people get assassinated. That's history tells the truth. So yeah, man, I'm curious to what, just objectively the same question, like your thoughts on politics and open-ended, like
Sure.
where your heartbeat is with that, but also specifically too, like talking about like democracy and what does that mean, and is it being conducted in the way that is the best? And if it was to change, like the most important thing you and I discuss is not to just point what people are doing and not doing right or whatever. It's always about, like, you and I are always here to be introspectively, humbly filleting our souls and taking full responsibility for what are we, because ultimately it comes down to what are you and I doing every day to effect change within ourselves, which is the only thing we're responsible for.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I think when it comes down to politics, dude, it's something where we need to search ourselves just like anything else, because we have all these inner beliefs about the way things should be. You could go to abortion rights, which is the hot topic because of what's going on in Alabama and even New York and stuff like that, where to gun control, to all these things, right? Where when you think about what's behind that, it's a belief on whether or not you're allowed to have a certain type of weapon, to when life begins, to all these things, right? They're bigger spiritual topics. Because in the end, I think it really does boil down to everything is spiritual. And that's why politics kind of manifests itself as like this unspiritual thing, right? That because it's about being able to have a certain type of gun or something like that. Where I think the most important thing when it comes to politics is to really understand your beliefs when it comes to why you may be so passionate about a certain political topic or a certain political figure. Because we have to understand the world that we're in. And the world that we're in right now is full of so much information that we are still the guinea pigs, right? I think it was Eric Schmidt of Google said that we generate more information since 1995 in a single day that we did since 1995 before.
I believe that.
Right?
Yeah.
That's how much info is thrown at us every single day. So if you think about that, you have to ask yourself, how do you process this information? Where do you get this information? Because if it's a tidal wave of information and you take a soda cup and that's what you take every single day out of the tidal wave, how do you know that water is something that
That's a good visual.
is real and true? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
that's the mentality I feel like we need to have. But the point being is, I don't feel like we see that our world today, you can almost believe in any political outcome.
Yeah.
And if your goal is just to reinforce your political belief, whether you support guns or you support this politician, you will find it, because there is an army of people behind any political figure or political topic that is going to push that info to you to the point where you can use it as fuel to keep you going.
Yeah.
And I think we have to be aware of that. That's probably the most important thing when it comes to politics, is you can believe anything and justify it, right? So it comes down to, so what is your method of justification? And how do you know yourself that you're not being deceived, or you're on a path where, like, I feel like it's hilarious because it's insanity, dude. Every 4 years, 2 years,
Yeah.
it's insanity. We get so behind whatever politician it is, that they pump us up, and you're like, oh, dude, this dude's gonna do. He's gonna change some stuff.
Yeah.
And the same thing happens, right?
Yep.
But you have to ask yourself, so why are you getting so pumped up? Like, are you just?
Yeah.
Is it that surface level where you're just that easily? And I think it just points to what's going on in your soul. So the point being, when it comes to politics, I think it's an inner journey that we really do have to understand, that it's really possible for us to believe and support anything in the world we're at today.
Yeah.
And what it takes to have a well-rounded political view is you have to have an openness about yourself.
Yeah.
And you have to really, really want to know what's true and real and question stuff, especially difficult topics like abortion. Like, when does life begin? Well, so let's look at the science behind it. Let's try to understand it, right? Because it is a very big topic, and there's so many different beliefs about it that, like, we have to respect that. And so, I think that's where it begins. You have to respect the people that have different beliefs than you, because it is a very convoluted world full of information.
Yeah.
And if we're ever going to become a people that is helping end suffering across the globe, not just trying to make our country better or anything else, we have to take it seriously. And I don't feel like we do, because we are just kind of the sheep that are led into the pen. And it's just like, part of me is like, when I look at stuff, I constantly analyze it, because I feel like you have to. There's, like I said, the information is just, it's exhausting. I feel like it's made to be exhausting anymore.
Totally.
So when it comes to it, dude, I think that's the point to start at, is the politics of the way the world operates reflects your inner soul's belief system.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of looking at, are there good beliefs? Are there bad beliefs? Are there helpful beliefs? Are there harmful beliefs? Like, how are they formed? How are they sustained? Is it a weed? Is it a rose? What is it, right? Because I feel like we are terrible gardeners
100%.
when it comes to gardening the political belief system of what's going on inside ourselves. And I think that's where it begins, dude. So how in a world of so much info do you get to a place where you can garden properly, where you can look at it and test it and pull the weeds out? Because the hard part is, I feel like we want to water the plants that are growing.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's like you have to go back and look and see, is this plant really that good for my garden?
Yeah.
And then for the world outside your garden. So anyway, when you think about that, dude, so when you think about the world, like, especially being a father, that your daughter's going to enter into, which I feel like does make us care a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Like, how do you encourage that? How do you encourage that in your own life, in your family's life, and in other people you talk to, where you get people to wrestle with their own beliefs? Because it's a really hard thing to do. I mean, we're in the world of construction. It's full of dudes that are so passionate about something they don't even understand.
Yep. Absolutely. That's a great question, man. Standing back and looking at it from ultimately, like, politics is just a byproduct of something within someone at some point needing to express itself. And I think, as you said, everything can be mapped back to it being a spiritual soul issue. And as you eloquently put, like, every form of political thought is some kind of a rose or a weed, as you said, out of someone's garden. And we choose to go sit on the bench and either in that garden and pretend to be totally at peace when you're just getting thrashed by all the different disgusting Monsanto poison that's been around these weeds and is facilitating it, and you just pretend that it's amazing. And there's very few rose beds in the political system, and because there's an inability for humans to, you talked about the overconsumption of information and us drowning in it on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Sorting out the raindrop of truth within that tidal wave of just information. It's finding that needle in the haystack. And I think ultimately it starts with, and not to beat a dead horse, by the way, like, who killed the horse? That's so sad. That's so sad. But there is there's an inevitable there. I just thought about that. I thought about all these horses that deserve to live and they died, just so our conversation could survive. It's like, you already said it. Why are you killing the horse again? Everything has to start within the individual, and that raindrop within the tidal wave of information is so overwhelming and so chaotic, because you see the disproportion of, like, what is this raindrop? How is that going to evoke any tidal wave change in where the wave is going and how it's affecting anything? And I think that's why so many people like myself are pretty defeated with making a difference in that tidal wave. But if you have any hope of finding peace within politics or any other avenue of your life, you have to recognize that you are a raindrop. That's all you'll ever be. And if you want to find peace within the wave, like, the only thing you've ever been responsible for is yourself. You've never been responsible. Like, we look at politics and we see, like, if I put thought into this, I'm going to get so emotionally involved that if it doesn't go the way that I want it to, like you said, the roller coaster every 4 years it's that emotional roller coaster, because it's that competitive, disgusting nature we have to win. Yeah. And it's like, why are we wanting to win how to tell someone how to live their life when we don't know how to win the day for ourselves? Yeah. So it always starts within the individual, and I think for me, sorting out where my compass goes and taking that ownership, like you talked about with being a father, I realized that politics matters in the sense that it radically affects, obviously, the current season of life, metaphorically, that everyone is in. Right now, it feels like we're in this just drought, and there has not been a nourishing drop of moisture, being a political person actually doing the right thing and making a difference. Like, there's this the reason why there's so much competition and racism and just disgustingness out of humans that comes out with politics is because there hasn't been an individual that has been so brutally non-caring of the wave and just went within themselves and just manifested the truest truth for the common good of the people. Yeah. So it's I look at it and I see there is a future season going to come. There's an infinite fear that the drought's going to continue for a long ass time. Yeah. So why do you and I sit here and invest time in doing what we're doing now? Because I actually do, as pessimistic as I am from life experiences, and I feel like it's legit feelings from legit experiences that should give me legit pessimism, not to justify it. But there's also this freedom I have, like this childlike peace I have about the future, because I know I am taking my personal responsibility for my little raindrop in the wave of infinite votes and infinite amounts of perspectives. You and I meet every week, and we talk during the week, and we put energy into our own introspective journeys, into our own gardens, because we know, and this is the key point, is our garden is just a little itty bitty patch. It's a cubicle of little whatever we decide to offer into the world. That affects the entire garden of humanity. Sure. And I think that's what people are blinded by. Not to talk about the dead horse. I'm going to revive the horse. But when horses race, they have the blinders on, so that they can just effectively win. I think each of us are too terrified to take those blinders off and say, let's get these fucking guys off our back, these little midgets that weigh like 97 pounds and are racing at the Kentucky Derby. Sure. Let's take these things off. Let's have a revolt, anarchy against these like Kentucky Derby guys. let's get the fuck out of here. Let's go jump the fence and go be horses.
Sure.
And what does that mean? I think that's what we all want. We get so blinded by the competitive nature of winning life through a political avenue and siding with it, when in actuality it's like we need to get the weight of all these impressions of what we think matters from all these people dictating to us what truth is through politics, and we need to realize that we need to hop the fence. Because the grass is greener on the other side. And what does that mean? I think we need to understand that what we are doing now, what is happening politically within our own life spiritually and within the whole system, is absolutely setting up the stage for what will follow. And I think that's why it matters to be connected to it intrinsically, subjectively within myself, is to know that it isn't just about me. What I'm doing is absolutely affecting the world around me. I see the politics of my little daughter's life. What I'm doing to set the stage for her spiritual politics of her future really fucking matters.
Yeah.
And I've seen how my spiritual soul politics has radically affect other individuals in my life's journey. Mm-hmm. So I am infinitely defeated with all things politics, but subjectively I've realized it's not about the objective suffocation of the tidal wave of ideas. It's whether or not I can turn off the noise and the overconsumption of political thought and realize that my spiritual politics as a human being is all I'm responsible for. Mm. And instead of just blindly wanting to win with some team that's on some polarized side, not to minimize all energy in politics, but like, it doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't. It matters what you're doing on a daily basis to realize what you're doing is either the Monsanto disease-killing cancerous chemicals that's going to seep in. You share the same soil with everyone around you in your reality, and it can domino.
That's right.
So, yeah, man. But for you, where do you separate the objective whole of politics and coming to that spiritual subjective side? You know, on a daily basis, like the politics of your home, the politics of your work life, like how do you sort out the metaphorical, spiritual, political thought and the real, actual, tangible political thoughts? Like, how do you sort out what to, on the petition that you're filling out, the ballad of your life every day, the choices you're making? Mm-hmm. Like, what's your compass? How do you dial that in?
Sure. Well, I think you hit on part of it. It's, in the world we're in, I feel like it's really easy to forget how powerful we are, because we do, like, what we do has weight and power and meaning, where it's easy just to see yourself as an ant in an ant farm.
Yeah.
And I think if we recognize that we are more powerful than we think, what we do matters, we care a lot more, because it's powerful when you are passionate about a political topic and you take that information to the people around you, and next thing you know, it's like a ripple effect, right? I mean, I feel like we fail to see that a lot of times because we look at it as like, oh, what do I know? Like, you know, my vote doesn't matter. You know, what I believe is not that big of a deal, but it does. And that's I feel like the key belief to this whole thing is to understand what you believe matters, the information that you give to other people, the passion of your belief or your belief in some political figure matters, because you can instill that in someone else. And if we take that seriously, if we own that, I feel like what happens is we will look at it and we will try to have some integrity with what we do. We want that to give the information out of a place of like it being true, not because we want it to be true or anything else, right? Because we want to help people and help the world or anything else. But I feel like one, we have to realize our power when it comes to these things. Like, what we believe and do matters. It may not feel like it because there's a lot of people out there, and it feels like if we want to change things, we can't, but it does matter. And the more we step into that, the more we're going to see that come to fruition. It's just, we are. Mm-hmm. And then two is to understand that, like, with that power that I feel like we don't accept, that, I just lost my point,
what you do matters.
Yeah. But so it's what you do matters, but it's also looking at it and oh my gosh, what was I just gonna say? I've never had that happen. So just to go back to that point, and I'm sure it'll pop back up. But
Yeah,
that
just
like
taking that responsibility.
yeah, where it's you have that responsibility of spreading that information, spreading that belief to other people. That's what it was. So
Yeah.
it's looking at it and seeing that I can be part of the
Yeah.
problem. That's
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking.
Yep.
So it's accepting that
important.
fact too, where it's like you can be part of the problem on why school shootings happen all the time.
Yeah.
But people don't want to see it that way.
Yeah.
Right? Because I didn't go shoot those kids or anything else. I mean, this is a really weighty topic where people
Yeah,
can freak out.
absolutely.
But it's true because the point being is like if we create the culture where that happens all the time and we're kind of accepting it, then that's why like
What are we enabling?
Yeah, right? But like one, you realize your power. Two, the responsibility and realize you could be part of the problem of this thing. And like really just sit with that for a second when it comes to so many different things.
Yeah.
You know, it could be something like gun control and shootings, but it could also be something about like losing our privacy. Like when you adopt these terms and conditions when you sign on to Google or Facebook or something, right? Like you are giving things away that you just don't care about. And then when they come full circle, you're like, oh, I don't like that. But it's like you signed on the dotted line.
Yeah.
The point being is there's weight in what we do.
Yep.
And the weight in what we do is meaning that you have to be able to look in the mirror and say that, man, I could be really part of the problem that I bitch about every single day, and I'm oblivious to it because we all are, and that's where it comes full circle.
Yeah.
So when you realize that I'm part of the problem, then it causes you to go inside and work out those beliefs. To go back to your question,
Yeah.
it's realizing that I know in my life I have been part of the problem in so many areas, right?
Yeah.
Where I turn on the news and I see all these horrible things and I'm like, man, I can't believe somebody would do something like that. But I don't see my piece of it.
Yeah.
Because my piece of it's there. It's the tiny little drop that like you were talking about, but it's there. And to own that, because the more we own it and realize we're all a part of it, the more it's going to transition to us to a better world where we can actually step into these things that we really do care about and put the people in office and stuff, because like right now I think it's a perfect reflection of where we're at.
Always. Yeah.
You know, and it is like we can whine about whoever we don't like in office, but the point being is
The math doesn't lie.
well, but like we get the politicians we deserve.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
If we demanded somebody else,
Yep.
we get somebody else. The people, like you said, that would be better leaders and stuff like that, we would put in office.
Yep.
But we don't do that because it's like we're fed, like, oh, here's this person that has so much money behind it from so many different people that he's really going to reflect my beliefs and what I want, or is he going to, you know, do the things of the corporations, whoever else behind him. But I don't, not to get so political behind that, but I think it is something that's important. Where like, if we want that person to come into a political system that is based on the people, that was by the people for the people, that was a great system, but it almost feels like it's been hijacked because we've kind of retreated.
Yeah.
And it's like we want to blame other people, but the point is we've retreated. We need to take our ownership of it if we want things to change. I don't want to turn on the news and see all these kids dying in Yemen on a war that just fought by billionaires over some, like, I mean, there's a part of our ownership in that too, where we have to see that. But instead, all we want to do is pull out the biggest political figure and be like, that guy's fault. It's that guy's fault. Where it's like, no, it's our fault.
Yep.
As soon as we stop letting this happen and demand a better system, we're going to do it. But that's the hard part. It's stepping back into that power, dude. And it's not easy to do because I feel like that's what's so hard about talking about this type of stuff. We feel powerless. It's made to make us ourselves feel powerless anytime you turn on the news.
Yep.
And I'm saying here right now that we are powerful.
Yeah.
We're under the illusion that we're not, but we
Yep.
are. And that's the thing, is take responsibility for that power, and then things will change.
Yep. Well, I think you're hitting on the most important part of political thought, whether it's intrinsic, spiritual, or externally just heartless politics of the world. It's there is the only thing that you can honestly gauge whether or not you truly care about a political idea or political concept is not the degree in which you just invest to a specific political party or whatever. It's every moment how you're conducting the philosophies and politics of your life. Not once every 4 years. Mm-hmm. It's like we've talked about religion and church an infinite amount, and it's that the spiritual politics of going to a church for 2 hours and then the rest of the week my life looks radically polar opposite of everything I pretended to be for 2 hours.
Sure.
So the thing you need to be honest about, and we need to be honest about, is I only care about this political idea, whether it's abortion, whether it's gun laws, whether it's the wars that are being secretly funded by political ideas we'll never even hear about.
Sure.
The degree you care about it is to the degree you're investing time and energy. Outside of that, every 4 years of just putting a flag or a specific name out in your front yard, you really don't care. You really don't care if you're not actually introspectively creating some type of awareness, not just awareness, but action, tangible action outside of that. Like, oh, that's horrible. It makes me really sad. Click. Oh, Game of Thrones is on. Rad. It's like, wait, you were just watching thousands of children just got murdered in this genocide. Now you're watching this pretend genocide of these like dragons and knights, and you feel the exact same level of, oh, that's sad. But that's what the overstimulation creates, is that we don't even get emotionally, there's no differentiation between being emotionally provoked. We just want to be entertained by things. And we almost can't unplug from the reality of a real life genocide to our level of care for what's happening in a Game of Thrones episode, because we actually selfishly, get something out of that Game of Thrones battle opposed to the real life battle most people are living every day.
Sure.
It's like you care about global warming, clean water for people, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, how come you take 73 baths every day and you're so worried about, oh, I only drink this type of water and I throw away half my bottle. Oh, that's plastic. We as you eloquently said, we're so quick to be the judge and jury of how everyone else is conducting themselves politically. And we don't realize that the things we think we care about, we don't.
Yeah.
We couldn't care less because how it's actually being implemented in our daily life. But the most important thing I think you said is realizing that obviously, Martin Luther King is a hero of mine, but I'm not saying, I think he was a genetic freak of byproduct of circumstances and the time he was in and who he was and what he did with that. Definitely an outlier of someone who saw an issue and did something about it.
Yeah.
Was he human? Was he fallible? Yeah. There's a lot of shady stuff done in personal life stuff that, who knows what's real and what isn't. But it's like he was a human being, and he didn't let his weaknesses deter him from the focus of knowing. He knew the path of what he could do as an individual through learning to develop his mind and develop his ability to articulate a thought. And that's what's so powerful about politics. What's so powerful about politics is it's individuals who will probably highly likely never know as individuals, but they have found a way to believe in something and put word and letter combinations attached to ideas that change nations. It changes the reality for cultures from someone taking the ownership of what they believe in and having the courage to express and articulate thoughts that could be better thoughts than the other thoughts people are thinking. And it radically changes things. And he was making such a radical change through his articulated thoughts that he got killed. So there is there's legitimate fear, obviously, the whole death thing that's associated with, should I care as much as he did and carry that torch? And I would argue, yeah, you should, but it's easy for me to be on the sidelines of life. Like I've spent most of my 32 years just being a surveyor, objectively judging other people, what's good and not gooder. But I have realized, and I think what he realized at some point is like, I only care to the degree that I'm investing my time in fearlessly expressing my ideas of what's more gooder in life.
Yeah.
So that personal element, what you hit on, is like we have, living in the culture we do, we technically, in the day and age we do, where your and my thoughts that we're sharing right now, some little child in Indonesia in their little computer hut they probably live in those crazy little computer rooms, those computer cafes in like China, where people literally live in those things and just are on the internet all day. Like, that little kid can be listening to our thoughts right now.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane. That's insane, man.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's so beautiful about, what we're trying to do is trying to take that level of ownership to just try to start a conversation and a dialogue of like, could life be more gooder?
Yeah.
How do we do that? So for you specifically, when you sort out whether it is an abortion topic, like, I think that'll be an interesting one, because we're dudes. We can't do the whole baby creation thing. Like, what business do you have expressing your thoughts to a woman, the baby factory, of what she should and shouldn't be able to do with her body? And what right do you think that you have to put thoughts out there and say, this is what she should or shouldn't do? Like, that's where it gets really tricky. And telling a gun owner whether he or she shouldn't have a gun. So if I was sitting down, I was a woman with my gorgeous non-split end permed hair, what would you tell me if I'm like, if I don't want to have the baby that I'm with, who are you to tell me why I should or shouldn't have that baby?
Dude, that's a tough one. So, like I said before, when it comes to this type of stuff, it goes down to what you believe about whatever political topic. You could talk, your specific one on abortion is something that is very polarizing, because so many people think life begins here and other people think life begins there. And
I asked it specifically.
Oh, I know.
Because of...
Yeah. I get it. But what I would say to someone like that is I would ask them to search their souls to what they really are doing, and to ask themselves what they really believe about what they're about to do. Because that's the key thing. If you believe life begins here, right, then you're probably going to have a really hard time going through something like that, right? If it begins early, then you might believe that you're actually killing something because you don't want to deal with it. And to have that weight on you could be something suffocating, right? Compared to the mom who doesn't think life begins till much later and goes in, and there's not much wrong with that in her mind, right? It's not going to be this noose around her neck like it would for the mom before. So it goes down to trying to understand, what do you believe about the topic? Because that's the key point.
Yeah.
When you're about to make a seriously big decision here. But the point being is, when it comes to stuff like this, I have no business being a part of any of that. That is their journey, their perspective, right? The point is when it comes to this whole topic of like this political belief about something as specific as abortion, I tap out, because I have to admit that I don't know. And that's what I have to do when it comes to this kind of thing. But I think when it comes down to something that I know I'll never have to do as a man, and I know that plenty of women will have to go through, I tap out in that area where I don't know. But the thing is, like, I want to encourage the person who goes through it or not in that situation, like you just put me on the spot on, is to know what they're doing, to have a full perspective, right? Regardless of what your belief is about abortion, you need to understand what it is before you commit to something like that. That's the point, right? Because you can look at the science behind it and come up with your own belief and judgment. We all do, whether it's learning about what you believe from a church or learning about it from a doctor, whatever it is, we come to some conclusion about it, right? Most of us do. Some people, like me, I don't know if I really have a conclusion about it, because it is a very difficult topic, right? It just is.
Yeah.
So That's all. I just want there to be clarity and understanding when it comes to these types of things, whether it's abortion or gun control or whatever else it is. Because I think so many of us do it where we don't really understand what's going on inside ourselves. It's like there's this immaturity level of where they're like, oh, I love guns, man. I'm going to do anything to give us as much gun rights as possible.
Yeah.
Okay? Or whatever it is. You know, it's a lack of connection to the spiritual side of the political decision you're just making.
Yep.
Because like I said, everything boils down, in my opinion, to the spiritual thing. It does. I mean, politics is like the physical manifestation of a spiritual belief system in your inside
Always.
you, right? Where it's something that it can be so divisive. And that's what I want to talk about here, is because it has become that. So if you look at your abortion thing, right? There's people that are going to be up in arms over you going into a place like that and tell you that you're killing somebody. Or there's going to be people like, this is what you need to do based on what happened to you, right? Because of whatever crazy situation happened in your life where you feel like you're at this point, right? Mm-hmm. And it comes down to like, so there's two groups that are formed, right? Because that's what these political beliefs do, is they split ourselves. Mm-hmm. Next thing you know, there's an us and a them. And that's when some of the most bad shit on the planet happens. Yeah. Whether we draw the lines in a land and say like, oh, here's USA, here's Mexico.
Literally.
Right? Or we draw this place of like, this is death, this is not death when it comes to abortion.
Yep.
What it does is it splits ourselves. And I think the key point when it comes to stuff like this is to look and say, is to look and remember that like, even though we may have different opinions here, we are so much part of the whole. Like just think of like Carl Sagan wrote that book about the pale blue dot, right? Mm-hmm. Where you're able to see this blue tiny speck in space, and we're all on this tiny little speck. Just like you ever seen Horton Hears a Who, where that little thing's floating around, right?
So
that's us. Yeah. And to never forget that is us. It is us, not an us and them. It's a we here. Yeah. And that's what I think is so key when it comes to it. Because when you forget the we and you draw the line, whatever it is, that's when things get so bad. When you could just hate someone for being on the other side. You're wrong. You don't see that you're wrong. And just forget the we. Understand the we part of it. And I feel like it helps so much. Then you can try to understand the person sitting across the table from you who is completely different. Yeah. Don't forget the we, because politics makes us forget the we. Yeah. And so when it comes to stuff like the abortion thing, it's really easy to do. And I think when it comes down to it, it's just something that I think we really have to try to understand the bigger picture here. Yep. As best we can, and know that we're limited. We're limited. We form things that we're not going to be perfect. We make misjudgments. We have bad beliefs about seriously big political topics, and we may have them our entire life. So I just think that it's more about trying to step into this idea of how do we never forget the fact that we are so connected to each other, that there is no us and them, even though we may feel like it when a political belief comes creeping in and tells us that.
Yeah. Not to provoke more thoughts about that, but I think politics, because of the polarization, it's the polls being right and wrong, and people making definitive statements about what is right and what is wrong about my life, and I'm going to project that and tell you need to live my version of right and wrong, and I'm going to govern that. So is there always a gray area in everything? Or is there a definitive right and wrong and an objective truth that can be attached to everything that is everything that we choose to categorize or not categorize? Or the danger being, because I don't want to put the energy into sorting that idea out, I want to stay indifferent, which is where I have admittedly been most of my political career as an adult. You know, the terrifying lack of understanding that's been intentionally not understood. I I question whether or not, and this is part of my ownership as a father, knowing what I do with my life is building a world for my daughter. Is there, specifically about that abortion idea concept, is there a right and is there a wrong in your opinion? Or is it, because I'm the same as you. Subjectively, I know I have no business injecting my truth onto another woman's life, where she's at and her decision. That isn't my journey. It's not my reality. I have no business except to extend political compassion for knowing the politics of her spiritual journey is her responsibility. And my responsibility as being in her political world of the soul is to just support her and try to extend love and compassion and understanding, opposed to you're killing a baby. But separate from that, do you think there is a right and a wrong attached to everything that is polarized one way or the other?
That's tough, dude. And I guess that's the hard part, because when you think of something that seems so black and white like that, it's either killing or not killing, right? Where I think it's so hard because it depends which pool you're swimming in the longest, where it's like, if you believe it's not, you feel like you get used to all those beliefs that support that, or you feel like it, whatever. And I guess when it comes to certain things in life, I've learned to understand that there is a gray area, and it might just stay gray. So there is a mystery to the why we're even here, to all these things, and it's like, we don't like that. We want it to be black and white.
Definitive.
Yeah.
Yeah. We want to control it.
Yeah. Where I think sometimes it just is that way. And it's like, we may lean towards a blacker version or a whiter version.
Yeah.
But I don't really think there's a clear answer. I mean, unless, if there is a God and he just came out and said, you're killing a baby, right? And we were like, okay, that's the answer.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like it's made for an answer, because I think we're so limited on what we really know and don't know in this life. Yeah. And I don't think we like that.
Hate it.
So when it comes to stuff like this, yeah, we want to make it black or white. And in reality, it's not. Because we don't even understand what death is or life is or anything else. Yet we want to make it so black and white.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think when it comes down to it, man, some things are just a mystery when it comes to a moral question, as black and white as what you're asking. But I really don't feel like that's the way it is in the real world.
Yeah. Well, it's such a incredibly thoughtful answer. And you and I, we grew up in a spiritual political system of, there's an incredibly focused version of right and wrong. There's incredibly black thoughts and ideas in your soul and incredibly white thoughts, and you have to just press into the white. And as a reality, most people we know that we grew up with have spiritually imploded and have at best traces of still pretending to believe what they believe in, about spirituality. And most of the people that I grew up with who think they believe what they thought was real, at some point I have not personally made contact with, but I've heard through the grapevine that there's been like a spiritual genocide of like, sweet baby Jesus, maybe what I was told to think isn't reality. And maybe there is, like you said, maybe there is a gray area. And I think I asked about abortion specifically because there's not a more revealing topic that shows your value of life and your understanding of what does death mean. Like, do you really, do you have business telling a woman whether or not she should keep or not keep the baby? Do you even know what death is? Can you tell me what that means, where that fetus is going to go?
Yeah.
Is it because you think that fetus is just going to go to hell and she's going to go to hell and there's going to be this infinite amount of torturing because she made this decision? Or is there this little fetus going to go to heaven and there's going to be this massive like Izzy's buffet of, yay, a new person's on our team and we're going to win, and God's here and there's just warmth and love and Tempur-Pedic mattress pillow fights everywhere. We tell ourselves these things, that these things are facts, because we want to feel good. We want to feel comforted. We want to be in control of these ideas that we think we know what death is, to the point of fear tactics. Death is hell. Death is, making bad decisions means hell. Your soul is going to go there if you don't do gooder in life. Okay, well, then I fucking better win, and I have to fight for the people that are winning. So, which means I got to tell everyone I know if they're doing something wrong. I got to tell them what they're doing is wrong, because I got to win. I got to win, and when I die, I'm going to be in heaven. It's going to be this ridiculously rad party, and I'm going to party forever. It's this, but no one has any idea outside of some ridiculously beautiful, rad ayahuasca mushroom trips of the most freeing state of spiritual reality. No one has seen or experienced anything that is factual about what is right and what is wrong.
Sure, yeah.
We're doing the best we can with what we perceive to be true, and we all have a soul conscious to weigh things out. But it's I haven't articulated in my own mind as well as you just articulated what I really believe. I've always felt that gray area. As I've evolved spiritually and matured, I've gotten grayer and grayer and grayer, and wanting to be more compassionate and knowing that I don't know.
Yeah.
To always be in the middle and say, yeah, that feels pretty fucked up and wrong.
Yeah.
But maybe it's not. That looks like a great idea, but maybe it's really bad for someone else to do.
That's right.
And
yeah. But I think it does, dude. It comes so much down to the person, right? And I think that's the goal of all this stuff, right? The goal of all, when you boil down to, is like, how do we create a world where we're ending the suffering going on, right?
Yep.
So we're not just living in our American bubble and forgetting about all these people that are starving and can't get water and struggle just to survive, Because when you go over there and see it, and then, I went to Mozambique as part of a missions deal, and as I feel like a lot of church people do, they go and they experience something so that they go, wow, that makes me so grateful for my life here.
Yeah.
Right? But you go to that part of the world and you see people that are just thankful to be alive because they got tuberculosis. And, just to have a bowl of rice with some beans is everything. Right? Compared to here, where we go to the grocery store and like, ugh, I don't want that kind of cereal.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's so out of whack that it's just like we're.
What do you mean you don't have my Gatorade Zero flavor?
Yeah, exactly. So the point being is to not forget that, dude. Like, the whole point of this is like, I feel like we're put in this situation, right? It's like you wake up, you're trying to figure out where the hell you are, like what's going on, what's real, what's not real, and to not forget, like, the point is, like, we don't want other people to be suffering on this planet. We want to figure out, like, it's knowing that, like, we have the power and the capabilities of keeping people from suffering like that if we want to.
Yeah.
But we're not going to, and it's sad because this is what we've adopted, is part of what we've been born into, is like this American idea of, where it's about us, it's about me, it's this selfish mentality. And it's like, man, part of it to me is like, it's sad because I don't want to downplay our country at all, because like it's like what we've built from the government that's like, it could be so amazing. And not to forget, like, what happens when we come together as people to do the work of the people is awesome. Because I don't want to just make it sound like, when you talk about our country or something like that, we're a bunch of selfish a-holes. Because we're we have that mentality, but we also have this side of ourselves where we could be so amazing and helpful and end suffering. But I think when it comes to politics, to never keep your eye off the prize of how do you create a world where we're taking care of the habitat we're in on this floating rock around this nuclear fusion ball. How do we keep this going? Because interstellar ain't happening, dude. We're not jumping to another planet. And even if it was possible, there may be just a few hundred people out of like 7 billion are going to
make the cut.
But the point is, like, to care about this floating spaceship we're on, and that's what's so brilliant about astronauts when they come back. They're like, man, if people could understand, if they could understand where they are, it would change everything. But they don't, because all we could see what's right in front of us, right? And it's to never forget the fact that, like, yeah, we're on this thing together. how whatever this is, like we're on it together. It's a matter of like how do you wake up to that idea? How do you step into the idea of like I have the power to help those people in Mozambique, to help them to not have to struggle and suffer every day. And that's part of why I want to talk about this stuff and why we do what we do is just to help, because the biggest thing to help that is not to go and put that sign out in front of your door and to think that things are going to change. That's not it. It's to look at you and to understand like what you do matters.
Yeah.
And to own what you tell people, to own what you believe, because that's the only way this thing ever changes. It's not going to be done through the savior complex we've built into the political system. There's not going to be some messiah who comes into our government system and saves the planet.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen that way. And even if, like, humans just aren't wired for that. It's only done when we come up with a system that's based on, like, us coming together in a way where we could actually help each other. Not these political figureheads. I just don't feel like that's going to happen. But the key is to own that piece for ourselves and to keep the eye on the prize, because it's really easy to take it off where you talk about whatever political belief or hot topic is out there. Yep. It's so easy just to get so zeroed in on it. Yep. Where you forget the bigger picture. And it's like, look at that political hot topic through the bigger picture. Look at it through that as this lens, and it will start to change things for the better. Because I talk about all the time in work when we talk about political stuff. It's like, it's always, how do you change things? Because right now you feel like it's just like, you feel like there's nothing you can do. It's like this runaway train, yep. You know, and you can't do anything to stop it. But it's to remember that, like, we have that power to stop it when we come together and to own that. We could stop that train, no problem. It's just we don't think we can. And we get so hung up on so many different things. And it's just to encourage when it comes to this type of stuff, to just it's okay to not have it figured out. It's okay to admit, like I have, and I feel like you have, that we have kind of screwed up when it comes to it, that we've been part of the problem, to own it and to move forward. Yeah. But to look at it as this greater picture is something where I feel like is so powerful. And if we could do that and not just get caught up in so much of the stuff that keeps us so zeroed in on some meaningless thing, or, you know, something that is meaningful, but it becomes the pinnacle of everything. Yeah. So anyway, when it comes to that, dude, when you think of how in the world do we help change this system we've built and the way our planet's functioning right now, I mean, how do you feel like that ever changes?
Yeah, from experience based, I know the only time anything changes in my life subjectively is when I care enough about a thing. And in proportion to my level of care about it, things will change. To the degree things change, like outside of just my little itty bitty lived experience, if I care enough about a thing to if that extends out of my little energy field and I offer it into someone else's, I've seen it radically change other people's lives. And who knows what the domino effect of that is. But it always stems from when and if I do introduce my energy or my ideas into someone else's little political system of their spiritual journey.
Sure.
I've seen it radically change other people's lives. So I don't have the luxury of sitting in a place of just defeat and inactivity and wanting to just judge. I've fortunately and unfortunately learned that it really matters what I do and what I care about and how much energy I put into it, because it has radically changed some people's lives that I've come in contact with. In the same way that political people on an objective scale are making decisions that will govern and affect a mass amount of people, I know that my little spiritual political system has affected a few people, and the dominoing of that, who knows? But when I take responsibility to inject and offer and extend what I believe to be of value into other people's lives, I know that it's not my responsibility what is done with that, but what matters is that am I am I actually, outside of the expression of what I believe to be true, am I living that quietly within my own life? And it's so cheesy, and it's definitely a horse that's dead. But it's, you get out of anything and everything what you put into it, and there's an equal opposite reaction for everything. And the reason why I reluctantly but knowingly wanted to do this with you here on this level of soul expression to whoever in the world wants to connect to it is because I am taking that level of responsibility that if and when someone wants to connect to a conversation that really matters to me, and I've seen it change my life and change other people's life, I'm wanting to take that level of ownership. I'm not saying like I want to be, the next Stalin and dictate how your life is supposed to be run.
Yeah.
I'm taking my ownership of what I've seen change my life and other people's life, and I'm wanting to offer it. And I believe that's what true political change comes, when there is a conversation started and not a dictated thought that is governed and policed. So it starts every day I wake up, and I realize that I am a speck on a spaceship called Earth, and there is a high likelihood that my life will never matter to outside of a few little people that will die pretty quickly within when I die, which means who I am will be forgotten 100%. And when you come to terms with that, it frees you up. It frees you up to either realize that there's an infinite minuteness to your life. Do nothing. Just seek pleasure. When I've sought pleasure in my own political system in here, it suffocates and kills me, man. It kills me. When I seek to not take but give, it changes me and it changes people around me. And so that's it's so cliche, man, and it's so brutally beaten, but it's you got to find out what is true and why it is true for you, and you have to align your actions with your belief systems, and you have to build a ridiculous level of stamina for no longer doing what you do and thinking what you think based off of the reaction of other people. But you have to go within yourself, like the garden you talked about at the beginning, and you have to look at that thing and realize what is or isn't there. Is it weeds or is it roses? And realize that no one is going to come along and take care of your garden because it's yours. And highly likely no one's going to give a fuck about it. But you can absolutely create whatever shade or ridiculous combination of shades of different colors or whatever you want to create, whatever rose you want to create. You can absolutely create it. You can plant that seed. You can nurture it. And whatever you nurture will grow. Yeah. So it all stems from personal political ownership on a spiritual plane.
Yep. Oh, man. I think it's well put, dude. And, as we wrap this thing up, I just think it's important to, just reflect on the fact that it does matter how we garden and what that looks like, because that garden's inherited. You think of our kids and all that stuff, and they tend to plant the same plants we do. And you want the world to be better, I encourage you to look at your garden. I know I want it to be better, and the difference, I just feel like, the awesome part of it is just admitting and being okay with the fact when you know that you've grown some pretty gnarly weeds.
Yeah.
And thought those weeds were awesome, like the prettiest dang plant you've ever seen.
Yep.
And and then looking at it and be like, wow, that really was a weed. And it's not that big of a deal. We're all figuring that stuff out. So, and I think that's important when it comes to it. Because good Lord, do we get passionate about our politics.
Yeah. And
we need to understand that we are these beings of power that can change the world or ruin it. That's basically what we are. And I don't think we've really we're the kid with the magnifying glass who doesn't realize what he's doing, and that's part of it.
Yeah.
So it's just remembering that, and it's all right. I mean, we've kind of screwed things up, but God, we could fix them too, and never forget that. So anyway, dude, anything else you want to say before we sign off on this thing?
No, dude. That was a righteous way to wrap it up.
All right. Well, we will be back again next week with something, maybe, but yeah. Thanks for everybody who's been tuning in, responding. Keep sending us comments, emails, whatever. We love to hear, so take it easy, everyone.